We are now ready to get started knitting our Bernat ankle socks. Here's a little photo of the pattern. Bernat Sox, ankle socks to knit. You can find the free pattern at www.bernat.com. Just do a search for free patterns and look for ankle socks. And these socks are made with Bernat Sox. The yarn, the color I'm using is called Hot Tamale. Fun, bright, happy colors, perfect for summer. And this yarn is a acrylic nylon blend, so that it's machine washable and machine dryable. I would still recommend using cold water so that the socks last for a really long time. I always do that with my hand knits anyway, and I always dry them on the delicate cycle, just because I don't want all my hard work to go to waste. Alright, so now I have finished casting on 60 stitches because I'm doing size medium sock, and I joined it in the round, and I have 20 stitches on each of my needles because it's 60 stitches total. And my stitches, I don't think they're twisted. No, they're not twisted. I think this point just got pulled up in front, so let me take that back. Yeah, they're not twisted. Nice. Scared me there for a minute. You don't want your stitches to be twisted. Now, when you look at your joined stitches here, some of you might be making socks for the very first time. So I'm going to explain this to you. Take my time and make sure you get it. When you first started casting on, you started on that needle, and then you cast on these, and then we cast on those. And then when I joined it in the round, I made sure that my last needle was on the right so that I could swap those first two stitches. That's the way I like to join. I just cross them over and let them switch needles. And when you start to knit your first row, let's see here. Now, if you'll look at your pattern, it'll say cast on a certain number of stitches. Then it says divide onto 3 needles, and it tells you there how your stitches should be lined up. You should have 16 for the medium size. I should have 16 stitches on the first needle, then 28 stitches on the next needle, and 16 stitches on the last needle. So these two needles should have 16 stitches on them, and my last needle, my one down here at the bottom, should have 28 stitches. So all I have to do now is to get 4 stitches off of each of these on the end and put them onto the middle one there. So that's not hard because I have 20 on each of them right now. So I'm just going to slide these off. 1, 2, 3, 4. I slipped them off purlwise, and now all I have to do is slide those onto this other needle where they need to be. So I just bring my ends down this way, and I slide them off to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. There. Now that needle just has 16, which is right. And now I need to get, wait a minute, let's make sure I did that the right one. Yeah, I did it off of that one. Now I need to get 4 off of this one and put it on that middle needle. So, come to the end that's in between the 2 needles. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I slip it down to the other end. And I'm going to put these 4 on the other end on this needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now I've got everything lined up the way the pattern says it should be. So, bring that end down here. Have the yarn from the ball at the back. And then pull that a little snug, not too snug, just a little bit snug. Now I have 16 stitches on the first needle, 28 stitches on the second needle, and 16 stitches on the last needle. So now I'm ready to work. Now I'm really ready to work. So when you look at this, it sometimes can be confusing. When I'm first going to start knitting, I need to start knitting on that needle over there. See how my stitches are lined up? So this is the first needle I'm going to be working on. It says that I need to, oh, it also says you should place a marker, but I don't place a marker when I make my socks. I let my yarn tail be my marker. When I go around and I come to see the yarn tail again, I know I've made a round, so I don't use a marker. You might want to use a marker, but I don't need one. Okay, let's make sure that's not too loose there. Now, here is my little thing I like to do. Now, you can knit like this if you want, but the way I like to do it is I like to bring this yarn end forward of that back needle like this, and I like to have that the right side of the needle behind the left needle. So the left side of the needle is in front of the left needle. The right side of the needle is behind that needle. So that's the way I like to do it. Maybe you can see it better this way. It makes it at an angle, and it makes it easier for me to hold as I'm working. So then I hold that first needle this way, and I pull that section down, and now I'm ready to start working. That's the way I hold it. I'll let this end come up between those two fingers there. So it's right in the middle of my four fingers. And I just let it rest. And this point comes up right there. So that's how I hold my needles before I get started. And now I'm ready to knit. Believe it or not, we're supposed to do 16 rounds of knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So you get an empty needle, and this will be your right needle now. And your left needle is that first needle that has the 16 stitches on it. And the first row is always the hardest, so don't let the first row determine how you feel about sock knitting. It gets much easier when you keep going. So what we're going to do is the knit stitch, then we bring the yarn forward, and we do a purl stitch. And we just do that over and over again, all across all 16 of these stitches. We knit a stitch, and we purl a stitch. Now the empty needle, as you'll notice, I've got it in front of that right needle. It makes it easier to angle the needles like this, so it's easier to knit with. Knit, purl. Now if you are a continental knitter, you probably want to figure out a different way to hold your dpns as you knit with them. But this is the way I like to hold them for English knitting. And like I said, the first row is always very fiddly, kind of difficult to hold, and it's kind of difficult to work. But just hang in there, the next row will be much easier. We're almost at the last stitch on this first needle. I only have 2 stitches left. There. So that's the last stitch on that needle. And now I bring my yarn back, because on my first stitch on the next needle is going to be a knit. So I just finished the stitches on that needle, and now I'm ready to start knitting on the next needle. So what you do is you just turn it. So now this is the needle I'm going to be working on. And once again, I want my left side to be in front of that left needle, and the right side to be behind my right needle. Now grab it so that it's just like that. Now I'm ready for my first stitch. And the first stitch is the one that you want to make kind of snug, because you don't want to have a gap between your stitches, between your needles. I mean, sometimes if you leave this first stitch too loose, you'll have a ladder that goes up the side of, like a run. It looks like a run up the side of your sock. So in order to avoid that, make your first stitch really snug up against that the first needle you just finished. So always make your first couple stitches a little tight. Then you can just go back to normal tension for the rest of the stitches. So that's the way it works. So this is the first round, and like I said, the first round's kind of fiddly. So just hang in there. You can do it. Make it through this, and then you got it. There's something about the second round, it just feels like it's more secure on the needles instead of just with the cast-on stitches, because the cast-on stitches were done loosely like they had recommended in the pattern. So that's one reason why the needles feel kind of fiddly when you're working the first row, because it's loose on there from the loose cast-on. Knit, purl, knit, purl. The reason why you do ribbing at the top of your sock is so that it will hug around your ankle to keep the sock on securely. Ribbing does that. Ribbing pulls in your knitting so that it makes it nice and snug. This is the longest set of stitches here in the middle. Since I'm doing size medium, I've got 28 stitches on this second needle, so it takes a little longer. I only had 16 on that first one. I like having my yarn off to the right when I knit, and I like having the yarn off to the left when I crochet. I don't know if other people like it that way, but I do. It just feels more comfortable. Maybe it's because I'm an English knitter instead of continental. If you're continental, you might like having the yarn off to the left because of where you're pulling your yarn from. Now I'm at the last stitch on that needle. Now I'm ready to start knitting on the last needle. So far I've knit across that and across this, so now I'm ready for my last needle. And if you ever get lost, just look and see where your yarn is coming from, and you'll see the last stitch you just made. So now bring that yarn back. And get this end in front of that left needle. Grab it. And make sure your first stitch is kind of snug. So pull that tight. And then do a purl. And then just keep doing knits and purls to the end. It won't take long to do this round because it's only 16 stitches. I like this colorful yarn, especially if you're making socks for the very first time, because it's easy to see your stitches. It's easy to see each stitch as you work it. So I can see I did yellow ones over here. I finished those. These are pink. I haven't knit them yet. Almost finished with this round. Yay! Only 4 more stitches. Knit, purl, knit, and here's the last stitch of the first round. Yay! And the way I can tell it's the last stitch is because here's my yarn tail. So I've made it all the way around to the beginning. So my first round is complete, and now you can see how everything hangs down from the needles. And now we're ready to work on the second row. So I'll do the second row in the next video. And that's it. See you guys soon. I hope you're enjoying learning to make socks. I think it's fun. Talk to you later. Bye.